How challenging is that? Like working with a top performer in this space, how's that different from working with somebody who's seeking general health? I know that the margins are very different. Like somebody looking at a top performer looking at improvement might already be at 95% and they're looking to get to 99%. But how challenging is that? Like, give me probably like one example that I can relate to and something that I can think about.
I don't think it's that challenging because the way that we're approaching things, we're looking at those big foundational systems. We're looking at hormone function, gut health, and detox liver function as like sort of a base for everything else. So a lot of athletes, you'd be surprised, even at the top of their field, haven't really done things properly. They're just extremely talented. But when you start to apply some of the optimization, like, our sort of thinking is if we can get peak performance on the inside, that will translate to peak performance on the outside. So when we're looking at markers there's often a lot of things to improve behind the scenes, and that will translate into sort of, I had a champion fighter I was working with and had so much room for improvement in terms of sleep quality, energy throughout the day, recovery levels, and even seeing that on blood markers, like looking at C-reactive protein levels and saying, look at your recovery should be better than this. And that's how you can get sort of that extra little bit. But I think even that is so specific because I have that particular athlete I'm thinking of who needed some improvement on energy, sleep, recovery. Then you have other athletes that need nutritional tuning to fine tune it for them, and that gets them to the extra level, right? So I think what we're really good at and what we've become good at is breaking somebody down really quickly and saying like these are the areas of weakness. So for you it's this. For you it's this, and then we explore those areas. And then we open up those areas and see, okay, how can we can improve these pieces, and then how can we show that objectively? How can we improve that, and how can we see it on markers and biomarkers? And then when we see it there, it also translates on into the activity as well, which is nice.
One core realization here is that probably longevity and performance are not on the same spectrum. I mean, they are on the same spectrum, but sometimes they are probably on different sides of the same spectrum. Uh,
Yeah. And if you look at the information on longevity, which is tied to like mTOR, right? So mTOR is your ability to build muscle, basically,
yeah,
like on its simple terms.
yeah,
So the more you're activating mTOR, the quicker you're aging your body.
yeah, yeah,
But the more you activate mTOR, the more lean muscle you have, so the better performance you'll have now.
yeah.
But long term, maybe not improve. So there's a sort of a fine line there where how can you maximize performance but also improve longevity so that they can compete for a longer time.
Just
There's
enough.
sort of a in
Yeah,
between. Yes, yeah, it's a little bit in between there, right? So,
yeah.
um, and I do a lot of I used to, not as much now, but I used to do work with a lot of MMA fighters and UFC fighters and do a lot of weight cuts. So the same thing goes for that. It's a similar analogy. You need to bring the weight down, but if you disregard performance, you could bring the weight down and then lose the competition. You have to have a fine balance there where it's like, let's bring the weight down, but let's not sacrifice performance while doing it.
And since you work closely with UFC performers and MMA fighters, I think the challenges would be very, very different in terms of the injuries and the inflammation and the type of challenges that you would have with health because uh, combat sports or something that is more impact oriented, like more you can say prone to injury potentially could be a very different recovery protocol, have a very different recovery protocol compared to an endurance athlete.
100%, yeah, and also because the volume of training is higher. Because most UFC fighters are training like 5 to 6 different disciplines, which is almost like 5 different sports,
Wow.
right? So they would train boxing, wrestling, kickboxing, jujitsu, um, judo, some sort of other. So really, you're almost doing the workload of 5 athletes yourself. So oftentimes they're training 2 to 3 sessions a day. So
Yeah.
yeah, so recovery has to be a big focus there, and also how do you get someone to peak at the right time? Because they'll often do an 8-week training camp, So if you don't support the body properly, by the time you get to your actual fight competition, you could be completely burnt out if you don't do it properly, right? So then you've wasted all that effort, and when it counts the most, you're at your worst.